Good evening, Isle of Faces listeners. How are you? Are you as emotional as I am? You will be. Well, maybe not quite as emotional as I am. I'm going to get pretty emotional. I say get, I already am. Very foolishly before starting recording, just looked at some lovely cast photos. Them all smiling at their final time together. So yeah, that's weighing heavily. Anyway, today we are talking about Season 8, Episode 5, The Bells, as well as, of course, the final episode, which is 7 hours away, just under 7 hours away, hence the emotion. In a moment, Lady Buckley will be joining me. We're going to talk about some keywords that we felt from the episode. We're going to talk about some breaking points that we saw from various characters, and of course, again, what we think about tonight's episode. Before we get to that, little bit of housekeeping. I'm not going to bother you too much. This week, in case you missed it, I made quite a special announcement, one close to my heart, about a book that I've been writing for 2 years called The Great Castles of Westeros, an unofficial guide. I'm not going to repeat everything I said there because I already announced it on our Thursday episode with the lovely hosts of Girls Gone Canon, which is really the main point. Yes, the book is nice. I'm really, really overwhelmed by the reaction and did not expect that at all. But, more importantly, go and listen to that episode with Chloe and Eliana from Girls Gone Canon because it is really, really good listen, if I do say so myself, which I do. Really, really pleased and happy by the reaction. I thought maybe I'd get 100 likes on that tweet, and I got a fair bit more than that. So thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. I was very emotional. It's been a tough week, emotion-wise for me. Very emotional seeing all that, all the support, all the nice comments, all the sharing. I will do my best to put in the work to make sure no one is disappointed, and that support was warranted. So thank you. Keep looking out for details because they will be coming soon after. Don't have so much to do for Season 8, which we will turn to now. Speaking of this episode, I was really lucky again to be invited back on History of Westeros' live stream last Wednesday, the Book to Show stream. So please go and look at that as well if you haven't got a chance. It's myself and Aziz and Lady Gwyn, of course, from Radio Westeros. So go and have a look at that. And even more fun, I'll be back again next Wednesday to discuss tonight's episode, the last ever episode. So really a place of honour. I'm not sure I deserve, but they've asked me anyway, so I'm not going to say no. Right then, this is going to be a short episode today because, like I say, 7 hours to go. I've still got another essay to put out yet. It just never stops over here at the Isle. So let's get to it then. Let me introduce, of course, Lady Buckley. How are you today?
Very nervous about later.
Why are you nervous?
I think you're going to be a little puddle of emotions on the floor.
I already am. So just give me a couple of single keywords from this episode. What would it make you think or feel?
I think it was very kind of a lot of moving in terms of emotions. I think this whole season's been like that. There's been a lot of moments where it's been really, you can't really say that one way or the other. There's lots of different bits where you've got emotions of sadness and fear and excitement. It's a lot of different things.
What about my ones would be more like not disgust, but like just felt heavy-hearted after watching it with all these terrible things happening to people.
Yeah, a lot of brutal innocent deaths. Yeah. Exactly what like Varys and Tyrion were fighting not to happen. Yeah,
and I think also like Game of Thrones has shown brutal innocent deaths the whole way through, but I don't think there's anything been like this really.
It was en masse,
and just the way it was shot as well with such good cinematography and etc. etc.
It just draws a parallel to so many things that go on though in the real world. So
yeah, I guess it does. So I think mainly that Aya part at the end is where you see the most of like the children trying to hide and man looking for his wife and people cradling burnt bodies and stuff like that. And maybe it's worse because we know this time exactly who's doing it, and we can't really hate Daenerys, but obviously we see the effects. It pulls us in two different directions. What would you say?
I think it gets worse as it goes on. I think when it starts, it's not, you don't have turmoil and the like full-blown terror that's seen from it. But I think as it goes on, it humanises King's Landing a lot more. You see the mother and the daughter, the kind of the relationships within it of the innocents.
Yeah.
I think King's Landing has always been built up to be this like metropolis full of the kind of the thieves, the lowlifes, the all kinds that go on with that in King's Landing. It's built up throughout this series of that, and I think it actually towards the end, when you see with Arya and what you're saying about that moment, you see that it's a mother and a daughter, there is innocence within there, and it's looking at how that is portrayed. It really,
But I suppose at the beginning it starts with her attacking the soldiers as well, which we're more than used to, and we can kind of make our peace with.
And the infrastructure, like the what are they called? I think
Scorpions.
The Scorpions and the soldiers on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. So we
buildings.
can. That's okay. But specifically that woman and her daughter that Arya tries to save. That's kind of a little mini story within the episode, because they only don't make it inside the gates because the Hound and Arya push through.
Yeah.
So then, and yet the woman still helps Arya get up when she's about to be trampled, which would have been horrible if Arya had gone out that way. It draws a definite parallel to Jon nearly getting suffocated in the Battle of the Bastards.
It also makes you feel horrible as an audience because you feel that relief for Arya when actually you see this innocent woman and child be murdered. Yeah,
exactly. And because we don't know, they might have died even if they had got in the gates, but in theory they died because they're out, and then Arya tries to take them out again and they get burned. Again, she's right, they probably would have died staying where they were anyway. And I suppose that's the whole point, is that Arya, with all her special skills, she can kill a Night King, but she couldn't save two people.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Daenerys though, was it? Because Grey Worm turned on the innocents. And I think this is all obviously stemmed from the moment of Missandei dying, which struck a chord within them. I know I've spoken about this before, but there is a real breaking point, and you could see that within both of them within that point. And we talked about it last time. And this is obviously the after effects of that, the kind of mental instability that comes from watching a loved one die at the hands of your enemy.
Yeah, you're right. We did speak about Grey Worm especially because we wondered a bit about his unstudied training finally breaking in this moment, because we're not really sure if Daenerys and he agreed that even when the bells rang they would ignore it, or did they both decide that on their own? We don't really know.
I personally would think that from what's happened, that it was not agreed beforehand. It was just a instant reaction, especially as it such a contrast to what they were like when they were in Essos, and that they were trying to defend the people, in that it was always about the people. It's completely changed in their minds the way that moment hit them.
Well, I suppose it's because they see these people as enemies, especially Grey Worm, then foreign to him, and they were all horrible to Missandei, and their city just murdered Missandei. But yeah, in terms of his training, so she starts burning first, so maybe it's Grey Worm just taking the signal, but maybe it is him saying he doesn't care about any of that anymore and just going full rage mode. But either way, he went a step further than we've seen from him before.
And there was a little bit of a difference as well with Grey Worm. He was attacking soldiers who had direct links to Cersei. It wasn't just innocents running through the streets.
Yeah.
He directly was attacking.
Although they had surrendered.
Yes, they had surrendered, and that's what we were saying. But they were Lannister soldiers. So with him, it's a little. I want to say a little bit better. It's still not good, but it's a little bit. You can see a little bit more that he.
Well, we can still see why he's arrived at that point, and he's not wrong in his reasoning.
I can see both of them why it happened. I don't agree with it.
No.
Definitely not. But there is always that within inside you and every single person, that there is a point which you cannot take anymore, and there's a lot. It really does address a lot of the kind of mental issues that you don't see within a lot of shows like this.
Yeah, true. No, they won't go into that much detail. I don't think we'll focus on Daenerys and her breaking point, because it's been hyper focused on by everybody, and I've already written about it this week. So let's go to Jon instead. So he has a different breaking point in which he flips the other way. So where, even though at the beginning he doesn't partake, but he's kind of frozen when Grey Worm throws the spear and it all kicks off. And then at some point he decides enough is enough. So what do you think about what Jon goes through in this episode?
I think it's one of the same things that's happened with Jon throughout the entire run of the show, is his conflict between being Ned's son. And I think obviously just being realised, but it's very recognised now that it's his conflict between, well, his love for Daenerys, his idea of being a Targaryen and being a Stark, and the nobility of being Ned's son. I know he's actually Lyanna's son, but it's the same way that you would say with... Who did we say that was brought up by? No, someone was brought up by... We said their father was someone else because they were brought up by them. We were talking about this the other day. Oh, yeah, okay. So, yeah, Ned is his father, in all intents and purposes. Whether he wasn't his biological father, but he was the person who raised him with his ideals, and that's the kind of conflict he saw, was that you don't raise your hand to innocence.
So I don't see it as a Targaryen versus Stark conflict. I see it as Stark versus Stark. He's being Starky already. He's being like Ned already because he's obeying Daenerys, which is his duty, in the same way that Ned obeyed Robert.
Yeah.
Even though Ned spoke up a bit about it, a bit more. But also his duty is to protect the innocent and not do bad things, which is also very Starky. So he had to kind of choose which Ned lessons he's going to follow here, and eventually did choose the right one. I think you could see, he wasn't all that confident going in anyway. But yeah, and definitely the moment when he had to start killing his own soldiers was a turn for him.
The moment that I thought was the true kind of point where you see that within him it was even a bit before that, though, was when it was just him and Davos just stood, because obviously Davos is from there. He is those people.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he's always been this steadfast. He's been steadfast loyal. He was steadfast loyal to Stannis until obviously the breaking point of that, and then obviously he's one of those characters that has got good morals within that, and the same within Jon, but they were the two to stop.
Yeah, I guess they didn't really address about Davos and his background. I wonder if they will tonight, maybe.
I wonder a lot of things about tonight, and I think it is going to be a big head of what Jon was going through, and he saw that devastation. Arya saw that devastation. It wasn't just Daenerys. Yes, she instigated it and she caused a massacre, but there was also Grey Worm and the other soldiers all following her lead.
And Tyrion will probably get roped in as well, even though he did obviously try to stop it, but he's still seen as Daenerys' right-hand man, so maybe a portion of the blame will be given to him. But let's not get too sidetracked. We'll talk about that later. So you want us to talk about another breaking point or someone else?
So we were just mentioning Tyrion, and he definitely had a breaking point within this episode. It was immediate with Varys. He was struggling last episode to talk about the treasonous actions and to be able to say that, well, this is treason. We shouldn't be talking about this, but it is right. And his relationship with Varys before that, the fact that he spoke up about Varys to Daenerys and to watch his friend die that way, I think he always had it within him. It wasn't as much of a breaking point to flip in kind of your characteristics as much as Daenerys and Grey Worm did, but what he did is he broke in the sense that his desperation to save the people. Yeah. And it was his whole line in that episode was really good to me, in that he's releasing Jaime. He was doing anything he could to save the people, the same way that he did when it was Blackwater and it was Stannis. He did everything he could.
I suppose he's had one kind of minor breaking point where he's decided he can't let Varys keep doing whatever he's doing, despite their friendship. And even though he knows Varys is onto something here deep down, as we saw last episode, and has now been proven, but he still tried to stick steadfast to Daenerys and go with that. Now he's on the other side, where everything he tried, like you just said, basically everything went wrong. He tried to save the city, he tried to make a surrender, that didn't happen. Tried to save Jaime and Cersei, that didn't happen. He essentially sent his brother down to die. So he's going to be in a fairly similar position to what Daenerys was just in, where he's lost almost everything he cares about and is quite alone. So I wonder if we see a further breaking point from him tonight.
I think that will definitely happen. I think you can see when he's walking towards the city at the end that he does not agree with anything that Daenerys and
Grey was horrified.
Yeah, he was more towards the side of Jon, and even though he is Daenerys' right-hand man, I think he will turn against her. I don't think there's any way that he would agree with such things. He's not aligned with that kind of brutality and death of innocence.
No, especially now he's tried so hard to save all of them, and he did it before, but this time has failed. And that was another harsh part of the episode to watch, was just Tyrion through this whole episode. It was very hard to watch.
Yeah, it was. I think another breaking point we can talk of if we move away from Tyrion was it was very short-lived, but it was a true breaking point, and there's a real breaking character with Cersei. When you see her right at the end begging for her life. Yeah,
so there's a lot of people not too happy with how she died, but I don't agree with that personally. I think before we even get to that part, when she's still up on her famous balcony watching everything happen, you can see she's maintaining this brick wall facade that she's got, where the Golden Company will protect us. Well, they're dead. Well, Euron will protect us. Well, his fleet's gone. Well, the people will protect us. And it's a little bit reflective of Tyrion and Varys, where Varys keeps saying these things. Tyrion keeps deflecting. This week it's Qyburn saying these things are really quite obvious, and Cersei is deflecting. And then eventually the bells ring. She knows that people who already despise her have given up and aren't fighting for her anymore, and she's lost all the power and everything, and you can see her finally crack and start to cry. So that would be her pre-breaking point.
Yeah, but I think the final moment is when they're in the dragon pit.
It's just the basement.
Okay. Well, when they go down to where the dragons are, and you see the true fear within her, and that she doesn't want to die, and that all this time, the whole way through the show, she's been this strength of character and arrogance,
sheer will,
and the fact that she followed Jaime in the knowledge that she was going to be safe, that they were going to get out together. She trusted him, and in the end, it led to her death.
I think even before she gets to him, you can see her after Qyburn dies and she has to pass the Clegane brothers, when she's walking on her painted map floor. And she's kind of wandering around. She doesn't have any more. She's done. She doesn't really know what to do until she sees Jaime, her saviour. But like you say, she goes down into the basement, and she has to beg for her child's life, and she says she doesn't want to die. I know people were hoping for like a crueler quote unquote death, but I think that's pretty bad to go wanting to stay alive just for your child and you're denied that. It's pretty harsh.
It is, and I think with Cersei and Tyrion and Varys, I think it's a lot to be said that the whole way through their strength has been in their politics, their ability to talk and to deal with people, and within this entire show, their moments, Varys, Tyrion and Cersei, have all been, they couldn't do anything about this situation was not political, this was pure dominance, and they had no power left. I think kind of the last one, it wasn't really a true breaking point in character, but it was a true point of giving up, as it were. I think the Hound has been a real fighter throughout. He's was almost killed by Brienne. He fought for life. He kind of gave up during the Battle of Winterfell, and he brought it back with Arya, and there was a real point where he was fighting his brother and he thought, he knew that he was going to have to throw himself into those flames.
Yeah. I think his breaking point was maybe his goodbye to Arya, where he gives up on this facade of taking her along, and he realises, no, actually, like, Arya will die if I go in here, and he's not. That's the one thing he wasn't really willing to do. He's willing to go in and die, like you just said, but he actually does, when it comes down to it, want to protect Arya, which we all knew, but now he's able to admit, and they had the very, very emotional goodbye.
That was really well done.
Yeah, it was one of the best parts.
I was thinking more along the lines, though, that it was his change from his fight for life. Like, despite the fact that he's always saying that he doesn't care and all this, and he was such this character, it was a brave facade, and that he did always fight for life.
And
except
also,
for that last point.
I guess his choice to, I mean, not that he could see the fire, but obviously his ending is that he jumps into the fire despite having a fear of fire his whole life. So yeah, fitting. And so moving on quickly then, just talk about, not maybe so much what you think's going to happen, because I don't think any of us really know, although there's good theories, but just how are you feeling about the end of Game of Thrones coming in 7 hours?
It is kind of a tragic moment, and that no matter what you think of how this season's gone, it is always going to be heartbreaking to know that such a brilliant show is ending. But I do, and I have said this since the beginning of this season, I like the fact that it is being finished. It's not just being left incomplete. I do appreciate that they are finishing it, they are seeing it through.
I don't think there's a question of that, was there?
No, but there's always, like, there's shows and things that are always left and given these opportunities for people to pick them up later on, and that's obviously not something that I would ever have wanted of this show.
Well, no, that would never be able to happen.
So, yeah, I don't... All I want is... I want some kind of comeuppance for this massacre that's happened.
Right.
I don't want Daenerys to get off scot-free, I don't want Grey Worm to get off scot-free, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I want some kind of comeuppance for this absolute devastation that's just happened to millions of people.
Well, you missed Daenerys earlier on.
I was.
In our earlier arguments. So do you think Sansa was right early on to not trust her then?
Well, I think the Daenerys' character, until the point where she broke, was... Stop smiling at me. I think Daenerys' character before she broke was someone that you could trust. But like I said, there's a point within everybody which changes you as a person, and it did change her as a person. And because of that, she did have this massacre. And I don't know whether it will be a comeuppance upon someone else doing it to her, like Jon reacting to her, or whether it's just her guilt and her own feelings about it. Because there is, even after that devastation, I don't think Daenerys, I think as a character, despite having watched Sandy be murdered, I don't think she would sit there and think that was okay.
No, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I'm interested in seeing. Or one of the other parts I felt so bad about was knowing how heavily this is going to weigh on Daenerys. Even if she puts on a brave front and keeps on with her spiel about saving future generations or anything, I think really, I'm assuming like she's going to walk through the burnt bodies and see the carnage, etc., and it is going to weigh on her what she's done.
I do. I think that completely. And I'd also like to see some kind of reconciliation with the North, not in between characters or anything, but just to see what is happening up there with Sansa and the others that are left up there. I don't want it to just be left.
I figure you would think that it's got a heavily feature still, wouldn't you? But we will find out.
Well, yeah, the only other thing that I said that we've talked about in the past that I think would be really good is just to see it truly become winter. As the whole thing has been winter is coming,
that would
but
make sense.
Actually, and there was snow in the last season, but it hasn't actually hit yet.
Okay, the last thing before we go in. And so this was the first episode in which none of our 5 minor characters appeared at all. Obviously, the ghost of Missandei was there quite heavily with Daenerys and Grey Worm, but that was it. So the remaining 4 alive, who features most heavily in tonight's ending? I think there's only one clear answer, really.
I'll get it wrong, though.
Yeah, probably, but we'll find out.
My only thought would be maybe Pod.
Yeah? What about Bronn?
I don't think Bronn will have anything to do with it. Now
he's going to have
dead.
something to do.
Now Cersei's dead and Jaime's dead.
Yeah.
His only hope of getting his castle. His only hope of getting his castle is Tyrion.
Maybe do something for Tyrion then.
That's what I mean. It's not going to be he's going to kill him because he's not going to get castle out of it.
I'm not getting. I'm just saying.
I know. I'm just saying that I don't see he's the main one. I see it's Pod being with Brienne because I want to see that what's happening in the north to finish it off.
Maybe. Do we see Gendry again? Do you think?
I don't know whether you do. I think he's just sailing off to Storm's End.
Gilly?
You might see her and team within the North thing, but I don't think she'll.
Probably won't talk.
I don't think there's enough time.
No time. No, too much to do. Okay, do you want to anything final to say before you head off?
If anyone can save me at about 4 o'clock this morning, I'm going to have a puddle with a husband.
No sleep tonight.
I know, and I'm going to be at work. I have to leave for work at 6.
Unlucky. Price we pay. Okay. Bye, Lady Buckley.
Bye.
And there you are, everybody. Safe to say, I love this show to the bottom of my heart. It will be very sad to see it go, but as I wrote on my blog yesterday, it's not really goodbye. It's just goodbye to a certain section of this whole world we've got. We've still got a lot of in-universe stuff to come via the books, etc. Obviously, prequel shows. We've still got a lot outside the universe in terms of our fandom and the content that's being created and all these wonderful, wonderful friends that I and you and everyone has made. We really are spoiled, and we're spoiled in large part, whether you like it or not, from this show. From the plot that George gave us, from the plot that D&D gave us, from the acting, the casting, from all the cinematography and all those, I'm sure there's people that have jobs I'm not even aware of that really contribute to this, to say nothing of the music. The music is going to stay with me for a lifetime, with you as well, I'm sure. I don't know, I'm almost, plot-wise, I don't think, I'm just focused on it being the last ever episode. That's special enough for me. I first watched this show 5 years ago. I had absolutely no idea what was going on, and look at me now. Look how many lovely friends and lovely things I've got to do because of it, all because of a TV show. And people can say you shouldn't put that much into television, but I fucking love television, so I'm gonna put as much as I like into it. I love this show. Really looking forward to tonight. Just under 7 hours to go. Brace yourselves. Hold hands across Westeros is what we'll do. Link in arms. Looks a bit like the Night King if you start to do it without anyone else, but just reach out and grab everyone's hands, and we'll look after each other. Okay? Enjoy, guys. Thanks for listening. See you on the other side.